I am here with Mr. Mike Mayberry, HVAC reefer guy, as some of you may know him. This is the Perception Evolution podcast. For those of you who do follow us, you know exactly what we're about. All about perception in the trades, both from an intercompany standpoint and from a customer standpoint. Talk about various topics within the trades, within the industry, and so we are excited to have Mike here. Mike, why don't you introduce yourself, tell a little bit about who you are.
Well, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Yeah, my name's Mike. I work for an air conditioning company here in Phoenix. Been in the trade since 1986. I'm from Orange County, California. Grew up down by Disneyland. So that means I really hate Disneyland because I've been there way too many times. And got into air conditioning because I was not going to graduate high school. Was a horrible student, hated high school, and so I had a career counselor that said, if you don't take this adult education class, you are going to fail your entire senior year, and you'll have to take your senior year again. And so I took I took his advice. I took this air conditioning class at night. That gave me enough credits to graduate, but the instructor said, you got a knack for this. You got a little something that's there, and if you want to do this for a living, you need to go here. And he sent me to this trade school over near Los Angeles in Cypress, California. And I went to this trade school and went through a 2-year program in 4 years because I was a horrible student in college, and I struggled with college life and failed the entire first year. And it wasn't until I had an instructor, Ron Truelock and Wayne Freeman, who I adore and idolize. They pulled me aside and said, you're really good at this, and if you don't get yourself together, you're gonna piss away a really great career, and we won't be able to help you. So I was he says, you're gonna have to take the whole program again because you failed the whole program. And so and I came back, and then something clicked. For the first time ever in my life, I had gotten 3.5 GPAs, and I was I'm gonna graduate almost the top of the class. And something clicked, and so in 1986, this guy walks in the door, and he says, I'm looking to hire a student that lives in Garden Grove. And I put my hand, and I said, I'm from Garden Grove. And he goes, great, you're hired. And from there, it just took off. The trade just became this natural spot. And, there's that Kenny Chesney song that says, don't blink. It's totally true. You blink, and here I am it'll be 33 years in January, and I don't even know where it went.
Wow, 33 years. That's a great story. And there's a couple of pieces in that story that I want to kind of pick out.
Sure.
So you had mentioned in high school, your counselors had guided you towards this.
Which we talked about.
What's that?
Which we've talked about.
Yes, we have, and that's kind of what I want to talk about here on the podcast. At least this section of it is it's a little bit different now. We both talk about the skilled trades and the skilled trades gap that's evident across the country right now, and one of the reasons we both discussed is the removal of shop class in high schools. And one of the things that I think plays a huge part in it is that the trades just aren't talked about the way that they used to be talked about. Unless you have a family member in the trades, or there's another circumstance that points you to the trades, most high school students have no idea what a skilled trade is and what's involved in it, and most importantly, what kind of success can be had from a career in the trades.
Right.
So without giving me any specific numbers or anything like that, how would you say that you have succeeded in the trades? What, as far as from a quality of life standpoint, why are you happy that you took the path that you did into the trades?
Well, my dad was a landscaper, and my mom and dad, and I consider and a lot of people have a weird philosophy about it, but if you follow any of my podcasts or stories, I always include landscaper in a picture. I think landscapers are as equally tied to blue collar as anybody. I mean, it was just backbreaking work. And my dad wore work boots and hard hat, and he was a landscaper for Irvine School District, and he became an arborist and a horticulturist, and he was certified in chemicals and pesticides and all that. But I think that, working with my dad, he had a landscaping business, and they had a company called You Call, We Haul. So if you called, we haul. And it was, going out to hoarders' houses and cleaning up, rentals that were destroyed or houses that were destroyed or front yards. And so I didn't really know anything else but physical labor because that's all I've ever done. I mean, when I finally got into high school, I was close to Disney, but I was also close to Knott's Berry Farm. And so I got a job in Knott's Berry Farm, working in the kitchen. So I knew that food was definitely not for me. But, it's still hard work, right?
Sure.
The trades was an accident. Like, it was literally an accident. I didn't know anything about air conditioning. I had tested well for mechanical aptitude, but I had eye problems. And so I didn't fit the military. So military was out. I signed for the draft, but I knew they would never take me because of my eye problems. So I also knew that college was not for me because, like I just told you, I failed my entire senior year in high school. And I literally graduated with D's. I was one of those people that they just passed through. You got to this point where passing through. So the trade became a middle ground between the two. And you had mentioned like wood shop, auto shop, metal shop. I failed at all those too. Like, I hate working on cars. I still to the day, I won't work on a car. I hate doing the oil. I don't have the tools for it. It's frustrating. I like being in a big motor room. I like having the room to be able to take a compressor apart. I just like that. But to do it on a car, I would hate it. So the mechanical aptitude part of it was natural for my career guidance counselor to go, you kind of got a feel for air conditioning. You do really well with electrical. You tested well on electrical. That's probably where you should go. So when I got into the trade and I walked into the school, there was all these frozen food cases sitting there, and I was like, oh my God, I got the smell of the mineral oil, because back then everything was mineral oil. And you get the smell of that mineral oil, and I'm looking at all this stuff, and I'm like, can I get to work on that? And he's like, yeah. He's like, here's some torches, and then I'm cutting into this stuff, and I don't know what I'm doing. But it just it for whatever reason, it just fit. Had that career guidance counselor not picked out the things that I was good at, then I might have gone down a different career path. I think I would have definitely been in the trades. I still would have done something within the blue collar. I think the air conditioning I would have been back to air conditioning. I may have done electrical and then come back to it. Luckily for me, I really had a great career counselor who said, you should do this. And when I did that, it just exploded. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing ever.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
You talked about the life that I've had. I mean, that we could talk about that for the next 4 hours.
Sure, right.
But bottom line, the schools then knew that shop was an integral part. Like, we went to home ec. So home ec, I learned about write a check and how to balance a checkbook. You were taught how to make a meal. You were taught how to sew. Those things in the 80s was really a carryover from the 1950s. The education system then taught that. We didn't have computers then, so I didn't have to worry about computer class. So it was like home ec, government, the basic general ed, and then all the shop classes were all down one aisle, and they were huge shop. I mean, auto shop was massive then, and it took up a ton of room. You had that then. Now that computers have come into the market and career guidance counselors have different directions, the trades became something of a budget cut, and the school district began to cut those programs out because it really wasn't pushed anymore. Like, my son is in the trades, but he was never pushed into the trades, and I never pushed him into the trades. I wanted him to find his direction. And now he's a chiller tech. He's 25 years old. He's certified in deck and turbo cores. He works for JPL NASA in Los Angeles. I mean, he's killing it at 25 years old. So,
and that's incredible. And I want to talk about that for a minute. Because all of the things that you mentioned, I think that a lot of people, if they're not in the trades, they won't know what the hell you just said. Honestly, as far as what he does and the
Yeah, we'll break that down.
right, of course. But what I want to get into is that because it's not talked about anymore, really, in high school, and it's not pushed, and it was cut due to computers coming into the picture and everything else. It shifted the supply and demand, right? It created this gap that we're seeing now. All the baby boomers on the verge of retiring, nobody to really take their place, or a shortage, if you will, of people to take their place. But where am I going with this? If people knew the type of success and type of both an income, quality of life, just overall benefits, work-life balance, whatever you want to call it, success. If people knew that the trades could offer all of that, I happen to think that a lot more people would be going into it. So let's talk a little bit about what type of successes the trades can offer. So for you, for example, and for your 25-year-old son, I'm sure as a chiller tech, he's killing it out there, as you mentioned. And obviously I don't want any specific numbers. We don't need to get into that. But as far as from a comfortable living standpoint, let's compare a 25-year-old tradesman to, say, a 25-year-old, general business grad. You know what I'm saying? As far as from a career placement standpoint, I happen to think that the trades path could actually be more beneficial. Now, depending on the person. I'm not saying that I'm against college or anything like that. I'm just saying, depending on the person, the same type of successes or even more can be realized in the path of the trades.
So your question is huge.
Yeah, sorry.
It's a massive, not in sentences. It's huge. So I'm going to break it down a little bit. I travel across the United States all the time. Florida, just like you, Florida, Texas, wherever. When I go to the East Coast, the trades are looked at as being very honorable. And the further you come west, the less honorable they become. So if I go to New York, though New York knows they can see all day long skyscrapers being built, they can see plumbers, they can see electricians, they can see the trades. It's really in your face, right? But they know the life there that the tradesman has, and it's extremely respected. Most of them are a union position. The union, and I'm not union, non-union, doesn't matter to me. I'm pro-work, pro-family. But the further you come west, the less honorable it becomes. So by the time you get to Los Angeles, right, where I'm from, Southern California, I would be in a service van up against somebody who's in a nice car, and I would get out of the van, I'd be dirty from head to toe because I've been out in the field all day long, right? And people would look at you like you're a second-class citizen, but they have no idea that I'm going home to a custom-built home, or I'm looking to and that I have two brand new cars in the driveway, and I've got this 401k, or I've got, or whatever it is. They don't know. They're just from a visual standpoint. In the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, trades were considered an honorable position. But as the 80s, 90s came into view, those people like me and my age, in their own way, kind of created it by saying, we don't want our kids to do what we do for a living, so we want you to go to college, right? So you have parents pushing their kids into college, which then the schools start saying, great, that's the direction they need to go to college, right? So that's one part of it. The other part is that the school districts start looking at, from a budget side, what are we going to do with our money? Well, we got these tradespeople over here. Well, we really need to start teaching computers. We need to teach coding. We need to teach this. Well, what are we going to do with this over here? We don't really have that many people in it anymore. Kids, young adults are not really going into the trades, are not taking wood shop. And on top of that, it becomes a monstrous liability. I've got saws. I've got engine hoists, and they're like, well, what if so-and-so gets hurt? It's going to be a lawsuit. Well, we can't afford that insurance anymore. And it starts going away. And as it starts going away, the shift starts becoming more towards white collar, coding, computers. I mean, you can get a job as a gamer,
Sure.
whatever it is starts going into that direction. And now my age, which is in the 50s, and your dad's age was in the 50s, it used to be that when you got into your 50s, your value went down. My value keeps going up. It's exact opposite. Like, I'm not worried about it. Oh, when I turn 60 years old, great, no problem. My value is going to be even higher, right?
Right.
So I think the skills gap has been created not only by the schools with budget cuts, but by society as itself. It just kind of created this skills gap. We were starting, like, I never wanted my son to be a refrigeration tech. I had no desire for him, and I was like pushing him towards college. And he came to me and he goes, "Dad, I want to be a sheriff." Great, that's exactly what I want you to do. I don't want you to be in the trades. I don't want you to be on a rooftop when it's 110 degrees outside. I don't want you to do compressors and brazing and welding and being, 55 years old and your back is hurting and your knees are sore and all that. So I kind of pushed him away from the trade. But at the same time, right, we had this, especially here in Phoenix and California, we had a downturn in the economy. Who was still working? The trades. Right? People, and that's what I tell people, you gotta eat. Refrigeration, you have to eat. You have to, even if you're on food stamps or government assistance, you're still gonna go to the supermarket. You're still gonna fix the air conditioning in your home. You're still gonna go to a air conditioned movie theater. You're still gonna do certain things. And you're still gonna have to be comfortable, and you're still gonna want fresh food. So the trades, whether you're an electrician, you may have waited in certain things, like maybe you weren't going to paint the house, you can do the house yourself. So certain trades definitely lost some momentum, but there were other trades that continued. Electricians, plumbers, you gotta have a plumber. There were like certain trades that did extremely well, even when the economy was bad. And my son's looking at me going, my buddies over here, their dads and moms are out of work, and we're going on a trip. And I'm like, yeah, because your dad does air conditioning for a living. And all of a sudden, those sons are looking at their dads and going, dad's not so dumb after all. Maybe that's a career for me.
I see. So when you said that you weren't pushing him towards the trades, you were pushing him more towards college. Did that change after? Like, did you realize after the economy downturn that maybe? And not to say you wanted to push him towards one thing or another, but did that kind of change your mind a little bit and make you realize even more about the trades?
No.
Then why was it that you didn't want to push him towards the trades, that you wanted to push him towards college?
I wanted him to make his own decision.
Okay.
Like my son he never went out and torched.
Okay.
Like, even when I had my own air conditioning business, I never took him on the jobs. I never, here's a voltmeter, I'm going to show you how a voltmeter works. I never did any of that. I didn't want my influence on him to guide him in a direction to where he was going to be unhappy. Like, I never wanted to be one of those dads that has a son in the trade, and you ask the son, and the son goes, "Why are you doing this?" Well, that's all I know. My dad just pushed me that way. I wanted him to make his own decision. So I made a point not to take him on jobs. I made a point not for him to take and do certain things.
I love that.
I just wanted him to find his own way. And if he chose the trade, it was because he chose it, and then he would love it, right? So he's in high school, and he has to do this report on blue collar. Or what does your dad do for a living? So I'm in Pasadena, where the Rose Parade comes down Colorado Boulevard, and I have this crane park. We had the police shut down. It was a Saturday crane lift, and I had my wife bring everybody down. And I says, "You want to see what Dad does for a living? Come down with the camera. We'll take some pictures, and you can see." So here I've got police. They come around the corner, and the police are all shut down. Got Colorado Boulevard shut down, right? Now all the cones are up, and there's police directing traffic, and there is the crane sitting there, and we're setting these condensing units up all like on a 10-story building or something like that, right? I think maybe 5-story building, and we're setting the crane, and I've got the condenser sitting on flatbed, and there's the crane, and here's the haul-away truck, and I got 2 of my guys up on the roof, and I got 2 of the guys, and I'm kind of I'm project managing, and they were like, blown away. My son was like, "Oh my God, Dad, this is what you do for a living?"
My
I'm
dad's
like,
king of the world.
yes. And he's like, "Holy cow, Dad," you know. And I says, "Well, here, let's get you on a hard hat." And I said, "Let's get you in the truck and we'll have you work with the guys to bring the load into the haulaway." And so, you know, he's up in the truck and they're bringing the load in the haulaway and the unit's coming down and you know, they're bringing it in and here comes the load. And I says, "Now unhook it." You know, we got gloves and goggles and the whole thing. Well, we did the same thing with my daughter. So my daughter was 2 years older and I says, "Why don't you hop up in the truck?" Right? So she hops up in the truck. And I said, "Now you both get an experience for what Dad does for a living." They chose their direction based on them. He really, really wanted to be a sheriff, and that was the direction I wanted him to go, because if that's what he wants to do, then he'll be happiest at it, right?
Sure.
My dad didn't push me in air conditioning. He doesn't know anything about it. Like my granddad was a carpenter. I never knew him as a carpenter. By the time I was in the workforce, he literally passed away. My dad was a landscaper. I'd gone out with my dad on jobs. He knew nothing about electrical. He'd never even brazed before. He'd never even welded. He was pushing lawns and chemical springs. So when I got into the trade, it's because I wanted to be there and I was happy at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think more people need to think like that, because that's what I'm a big advocate for. Not pushing somebody towards one thing or another, but asking them how they define success and what path do they want to go. You know, because I'll say when I was in high school, I was pushed towards college. Not by my parents. You know, my parents were always cool about it, but I had guidance counselors telling me that, you know, I literally was throwing my life away if I didn't go to college. And I was a huge advocate. In high school, I was the kid that hated school. I hated it. And so I was very vocal about not going to college. I knew I wanted to be successful. I just didn't know how I wanted to be successful. You know, and everybody kept saying, well, just go to college and take the core classes and you'll figure it out your freshman year. And I was arguing it then, and I'll argue it today. You know, if you don't know what you want to do, I say you need to go out and experience everything that you can that's pointing you in a direction towards how you define success. You can always go to college. You know, you can always go to college a year later, two years later. But like you, I'll never go to my daughters and say, you know, you have to learn the trades. I'm going to go to my daughters and say, what would make you happiest in life? You know, and we'll figure out a direction from there. If that involves college, great. If that involves trades, great. If that involves military, great. You know, but that's, and I think that, you know, it needs to be dialed back a little bit, and we need to remember that, you know, we can't push our definition of success onto our kids or your students or whatever it is. It's everybody's definition of success that makes them successful. So I'm happy to hear you say that. I think that we're incredibly aligned.
Well, the second part of that, right? And this is where my son really surprised me. So he goes and graduates high school, and they did exactly what you said. The counselors are pushing him to college. So he goes to a junior college and gets his associate degree. Now, he has to have a job while he's getting his associate degree, right? He's working as AA. And he did some things. He did some things like carpet cleaning and I don't know, he helped some guys, you know, doing little side jobs. And it really never really panned out. And then I think it was like 16 or 17, and I said, listen, the company I'm managing has an offer or an opportunity for you to work when you're in between your college classes. You can work in the shop as a warehouse guy, right? So he gets a job working in the shop as a warehouse guy, and all these journeymen are coming in all day long in these vans. These guys are coming in all day long. They're looking at it. They're doing the things they need to do. They're doing, you know, bringing in the van. He's cleaning out the van, putting compressors in, pulling compressors out, you know. And all of a sudden, he's working on his associate's degree to be a sheriff, but at the same time, he's starting to see these guys coming in, and they're talking to him. Hey, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, dude, me and the wife, we're taking the boat to the river, you know. And what are you doing this weekend? Oh, we're taking off, or, you know, we're going down to Mexico for the weekend. And he's seeing techs and hearing techs talk about their amazing lives and what they're doing, and they're just techs. You know, all they do
Yeah.
is blow cold air and make people comfortable, and he's hearing this. And he comes out and he goes, hey, you know, he says, I want to go on the field. And I go, well, you're going to have to wait till you're 18 at least, because liability, I can't have you in the field, you know. So he says, okay. So he puts in his time, he's waiting. As soon as 18 comes, he's like, I want out on the field. Great. He's still going to college, and they end up putting him in a supermarket side to where he's landing points in cases in Walmarts. So he's out dropping sensors. Doesn't know anything about it, dropping sensors. He does a real good job at it. And he asks the guy, like, what am I doing with these sensors? Oh, let's get you up on the roof and get you on the laptop. And before you know it, he's calibrating sensors off of a guy's laptop and making sure that all the sensors are in comm. Now, he hasn't gone to air conditioning school. He's still going to school to be a sheriff, and he's, you know, doing this thing, right? And he's doing all this stuff. Down the road, we get to this Walmart, and we're going to do the startup on this Walmart. And I show up to do, you know, to oversee the commission, not oversee it, bad choice of words. I wanted to see the commission being done. And I'm watching him, and he's like on the phone, talking to a guy down below. Excuse me. Talking to a guy down below. And he's talking about the points. And I'm like, I'm looking at his boss. I'm like, where did he learn this? He's like, dude, your kid's got it. You know, he's got it. He's like, he landed all the points in the cases. He verified comm. He makes sure all of them are working. I'm like, what's he doing now? He's like, well, he's checking that all the EEVs, electronic expansion valves, are all opening. And I'm like, what? Where did he learn this? And he's like, dude, he learned all that. And I'm like, what? And he goes, oh, yeah, didn't we? He said, tell you he got a raise. I'm like, a raise? You know, how did he get a raise? He goes, he's a natural. So I don't push him into the trade, and he kind of goes into it, and he's learning by all these guys on the rooftop that he can make a great living doing this. I think that goes back to the original point that people don't know, right? They only know what they know. And that's where, like, somebody like me and somebody like you, we spend our time trying to change the public's opinion that being blue collar is an amazing life. I go to trade schools all across the Western United States. And people ask me all the time, like,
That's definitely it. I think we'll end on a high note right there. Mike, man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you spending the time to come in here and deliver my stickers. And,
make sure you guys that are listening on social media, you can find me everywhere. As Josh found out, you can find me everywhere as HVAC Reefer Guy. That's HVAC _ Reefer, REFER, that's for refrigeration, _guy. I'm on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. I'm on Vero. I'm on podcasts on Anchor. You can find my podcasts on Anchor, on Apple iTunes, on Stitcher, Outcast, Spotify. I have a closed group on Facebook and an open group on Facebook. YouTube, I think I mentioned already, on LinkedIn. I'm on 11 different platforms of social media. And if you still aren't sure where to find me, you can go HVAC Reefer Guide, just like I said. You can Google it, or if you're an Apple user, you can Safari it, and you'll find me everywhere.
That is HVAC Reefer Guy, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate your time today, man.
You bet. Thanks.
All right, take care, guys.